Haley.
What's up?
So Haley's gone from, not knowing my existence to joining FCA to 4% to now fixing her adrenals. So I'm going to start with the adrenal conversation because
Oh,
I bring this up because the amount of coaches that I work with that are just not prioritizing their health and finally get to a point where they have to. So I'd love to know kind of what you've been working on the last few weeks as you've been working through some of like stress management tactics, etc.
yeah. So I was like, well, you fixed my business. Might as well fix my life. So let's start there. Might as well just wrap it all together. Yeah, I've been going through this adrenal protocol that you set up for me, and it's been a lot of changes in diet, a lot of supplements, a lot of things that I was really super resistant to and really, really nervous about doing because I was like, 30 days of no working out. Excuse me, what? Who? Who, me? No. So been doing that, but just like seeing the before and after of like, I mean, and we're not even, we're like 23 days in. We're 23 days in. And the shift that I've seen over the past 23 days is absolutely insane. Like before, I just thought something was wrong with me. Like, why can't I focus? Like, why does everything feel so hard? Like, what is wrong with me? And I was like, maybe I'm ADHD, maybe I'm ADD, maybe there's something going on in the stratosphere. But literally 23 days in, and I'm like, I feel like a completely different person. And I'm just kind of like, I'm so sad I didn't do this sooner.
Well, and I bring this up because while this is not a fitness podcast at all, a lot of my fitness clients that I'm getting now are my successful female business clients, right? Not because I have necessarily burnt them out, but our bodies cannot handle what a male can. Like if you look at the stats for millionaires and who are women and who are men, you will see a very, very stark difference. And so I bring that up because as we go through this podcast episode and chat together and talk about all of the wins and the highs, I also want to talk about the lows and the sacrifices you've made and the challenges you've made because I love the before and afters. I love showing the screenshots of the bank accounts and the savings, but there's not a single client I've worked with, including you, right, that has had just an easy step to get there. And as you're listening to this podcast, wherever you're at in business, right, I want to give you a very real, raw, open look at how somebody came to me feeling very defeated, very frustrated. This was your last ditch effort, and you've built a very successful six-figure business, right? And so, take me back to just our conversations in the DMs because you had obviously invested before. So, share a bit about some of those investments, what the investments were in terms of monetary investment, and just why that wasn't working for you.
Yeah, so I remember the very first day that you DM'd me, I was like, absolutely effing not. Like, no, I'm done. I'm not doing it. I will not invest in another person because up until that point, I had invested $40,000 in previous coaches, just anywhere between a 5K investment to I did one that was a 10K itself, another one that was a 10K, another one that was also very expensive. I think I've had seven. Like I invested seven times. And I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working because I'm a very like tell me what to do and I'll do it person. I was like just give me the step by step, and that's a blessing and a curse in times, but I was just like give me the step by step and I'll do it. And so I was doing all the things. I was like this makes no sense. I don't understand why it's not clicking. I didn't feel like I couldn't be successful. It wasn't anything like that. I was like I'm going to make it work. Whatever happens, like happens. I'm going to do it, you know? And so when you slid into my DMs, I was like, absolutely not. I think I left you on red for like 3 weeks. And then you would send me another one and you got me with the Lululemon. I was like, damn it. Damn it. It's the Lululemon. I gotta talk to her. And in that time when I was like totally ghosting you, I was listening to your podcast. I was listening to everything. And I was just like, you know, the frustrating part was like the concepts are the same. You go to any coach, the concepts are the same. Like they're pretty standard across the board. It's talk to people, market yourself, and deliver a good service. Like that's really it. But something about you in that podcast, I was like, dang, like I feel like she gets it. Like everyone else was very champagne showers. Look at all this money I've made as a coach, like from their perspective. And you didn't do any of that, which was what stood out to me the most. I was like, damn, she's not like, here's my Maserati on the side of the road, or here's my $4.8 billion bank account that I've accrued or whatever. Like, and that's what I kept investing in. And I just remember I was like so at my wits' end because I did not have $40,000 to invest into coaching. I invested that thinking, okay, it's going to get better. I'm going to make it back. It's going to be fine. And I never did. And I was literally like at my end. So you DM'd me and I was like, oh God.
And this, it's funny you say that, right? Because I think that there are so many people listening that can relate to that. And even if it's not 40K, I know that there's someone listening right now that is thinking, I still have 12 months to pay off of this mentor because I did some, 2-year extended payment plan. And that's preventing them from maybe investing in the right person. And speaking from experience, I'm not going to say that I've had bad mentors, but I've definitely invested in mentors where I felt like either what I get, maybe the expectations were wrong on my end, or I outgrew them really quickly, or whatever. But when you were investing all of those times, that was a 3-year time frame, right?
Literally.
Okay. So when you first joined FCA, what did what did your life look like? What did your finances look like? Did you have anything in savings? Like, how were you able to invest in me with all?
Yeah. I remember when I was talking to you, I was still in a contract. I was in a 12-month contract with another coaching company. And I just kept looking at all of your stuff and I was like, I felt it in my gut. I was like, I know I need to do this. And I got on my first call with Mike and I was like, he's going to think that I'm so full of shit, but I literally have no money. Like, I literally all that 40K was in the hole. That was all debt. That was just like, I was racking it up, just like, I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure this out. And I told Mike, I was like, hey, I have a credit card that has nothing on it. I'm willing to I told him I'd put down the down amount on that card, but I didn't have it with me. I was at my house in Greer and I lived in Columbia at the time. And I was like, he's gonna think that I'm so full of it. Like, he's just gonna think that I'm just saying this to get off this call. Like, I know how this sounds, but I was like so desperate that I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot. Like, because you had helped me so much in the DMs that I was like, nobody else has done this. Everybody else, it's been just like a really quick conversation of, yeah, I'll help you fix that. Come on in, you know? And I'm like, okay, like you said, you're gonna help me fix it. I'm gonna fix it. And again, nothing wrong on them. Like, I think we just didn't vibe as people. And like, I just didn't learn in the style that they taught, if that makes sense. But I was down for broke. Like, I had nothing. I had 40K debt, like didn't have a sight of how I was going to pay this off. I didn't have a full-time job. I was coaching at a CrossFit gym in Wando and I was literally making like, I don't know, maybe $1,200 a month. And you're living in Charleston. That's not even enough to cover like half of your rent. And I'm like, cool, like living off of my credit card too. And so that side of things just kept racking up. And it was like this huge pit. And I was like, there's no way out of this. Like, and then I found your page and I talked to Mike and I talked to you and I was like, okay, like I really think this is the way out. I think I can do this. And then it went from there.
Yeah. And, let me be very clear because while we're going over these things, Haley, you've worked with me for, I mean, a while at this point. Like, we're getting very close to 2 years. And, this, while, like you said it earlier, you've invested in coaches and those coaches might have been good, but they weren't the right fit for you. But you mentioned one thing in particular is that a lot of coaches say or are teaching similar ideas, right? And this is where I'll say, of course, right? You can't build a business without a marketing strategy or a DM strategy or whatever these things are. But after trying for as long as you did with various people, what was it about Fitness Coach Academy or methods that we teach that resonated with you, other than just me being different? How were you able to implement? Because in your first month, you made quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I hit a 7K month within 30 days. Like, it was the fact that it was so simplified. And I stand by that and I will say that until I'm blue in the face. It was you got rid of all the BS and all the other containers there was just like, it was like word vomit at you, like, here's all these things that you need to know. And I'm like, this is like 4 years of business knowledge that you're throwing at me at one time. And me being the kind of person that I am, I want a cut, dry plan. I want to do this, do this, do this, and I'll go and I'll do it. And that's what I got in FCA. I was like, it's very simple, not like simple as in like, obviously if it were that simple I could have done it on my own, but the way that you presented it made so much sense to me. It was like, no, we're going to start here and we're going to dial this in first, because if you don't know who you're talking to, you're not talking to anybody. And I was like, oh, okay, that like makes sense. And then we got messaging dialed in. And so then things on Instagram started to move faster. So the conversation piece started to make more sense. And I started to know how to talk to those people in the DMs. And then it was, well, now you know how to talk to them. We have to really deliver a really high quality service to them. You're getting them in your pipeline, you're talking to them, you're delivering a service, and then we wash, rinse, repeat. We refine it, we dial it in, and we just keep cranking those three levers. And to me, with my brain, I was like, three things. I can do three things instead of being thrown 800 million things at me. So that really helped me compartmentalize, and me having like chaotic brain that I do, that made it so simple and it made it so calm for me, if that makes sense. Like the noise was gone and it was like, oh, I just need to focus on this and I'll be fine.
I want to talk about the conversation that we literally had today because I bring this up because it just makes sense for this podcast.
Yes.
So, you know, again, let's go back to the summer of 2023, where, right? Was it 2023? Yes, summer of 2023, where you had your first like 8K month or whatever that was, and you hit that within 30, 45 days of being an FCA. Like it really did click for you, right? And then here we are, like a year later, you've built a solid six-figure business with a six-figure run rate. And you mentioned today, after having, just more energy from this adrenal protocol and feeling better, you asked me, like, what else should I be doing? And what was my answer to you?
Same things, just make them better.
And I know that sounds so silly when you're listening to this, but I truly had this chat with several of my clients today, because what I love about FCA, and obviously I'm biased because it's my program, but these are the foundations that truly do not go outdated, right? If you do not learn how to market, sell, and deliver, and then when you hit that six-figure year, how do you refine? Where can you add intensity? Right. And then as you scale and you bring team members in, then you have to teach them those lessons, right? So you create the foundation and master those skill sets. And then once you've mastered those skill sets, then you are able to, again, send them on to someone else. And that's where you grow a sales team. And, I was talking with my mentor today about what we need to dial in and focus on. And it was quite literally an hour discussion about sales team training, right? Like this doesn't go away. And I think so many coaches assume that they've hit one 10K month one time and they're too good for the DMs and they can outsource it. And what I think is maybe not glamorous about my coaching style and what I advertise is, well, one, there is not a picture of me with a Lamborghini. You're right. But two, I try to keep things so simple because your brains, meaning like all of my clients, are so chaotic constantly. And I try to be the constant in the midst of chaos, because if I can keep you calm and staying efficient and focused in, then one foot on the floor, you're going to be good to go, right? And we'll kind of go into coaching style later, but I want to talk a little bit more about FCA because in those 4 months, you were pretty much ready to join the mastermind. But let's talk about just how you got success. So you got that 8K month pretty quickly. And then what did you do over the next 4 months? Like, what were some realizations you had? What were some milestones? Any feelings that you had as you were kind of going through FCA?
Yeah, there were so many. The biggest thing that I noticed was I was so less stressed out. Like I had been running on purely surviving. I was literally 40K in the hole, like had no end in sight. And when I started seeing money come into my account, consistent money, because before that I had not had that. I had a couple of clients, but it wasn't even pay in fulls. I had no month to month structure. It was literally, yeah, you want to work together? Well, we'll work together until you're done, that kind of vibe. And that obviously never lasted very long because I didn't know how to like actually deliver and stack MRR. I had no idea how to do those things. And I just remember distinctly month 3, and we started kind of having the conversation of like what to do next. And I remember just not being panicked and being like, no, I'm doing this. Like, I'm building a business. I had steady income coming in. Like, I've never in my life made $7,000 in a month. I was like, and even though now that seems like so minuscule, before that, I wasn't even making like $500 a month. And so to see that consistently coming in, and I was crushing debt, like I was just killing debt with all of that. And I was like, finally seeing it go down, and there was finally a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm like, oh my God, like it's happening. Like I'm actually becoming a business owner and not just someone who's consistently struggling all the time. And there was that shift where I had to be like, this is the new norm. Like we're not that struggling person anymore. We're not like this super broke joke of a person anymore. And I just remember having that moment of just like clarity and peace when I was thinking, my time in FCA is almost up. Like, what's next? Tell me what's next. There has to be something that's next. I think I even messaged you that said something like, "You're never allowed to retire because I'm going with your grave to you. Like I'm going with you to the grave. So don't make any retirement plans because you're not getting rid of me." So yeah.
So when we think about like sticking points though, or you mentioned feeling like more of a business owner and feeling like you had security. So aside from like the actual skills that you learned, how would you say that FCA prepared you to be a business owner and not just like someone who can make money? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was learning how to not lead with my emotions. That was a really big learning curve for me. Like to not lead with the fear that I had, the fear that it will crumble, the fear that this was just an accident, the fear that it was a mistake, right? And making decisions based off of, no, it's going to work because I'm going to make it work because I have the foundations to continue to make it work and try new things and like refine my offer and tweak my contract length, things like that. I would have been terrified to do because I would have been like, what if everybody leaves? Like, what if it all crashes and burns and everything crumbles? And so FCA gave me a lot of that confidence in myself to be like, no, you're making decisions based off of what the business needs and what your clients need, and not just, I'm scared because I might fuck it all up and it could all be gone tomorrow. So that was my biggest shift because I was so scared from being in all the positions I had been in before.
Can you tell me, I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but can you tell me again, 2022 is before we worked together, but do you know how much money in total you made in your business in 2022?
I think it was something like $8,000 total.
Okay. What did you make total 2023?
Last year, or yeah, this
Yeah.
is 2024. I made $88,000.
Where are you at, where are you at for this year?
I'm at 130K this year.
So let's talk about the not so fun topics,
Yeah,
right?
there's some of those, yes.
Which is going from don't ever retire to maybe I'm not going to continue because I don't know, right? Like that was
Yeah.
a really big conversation over the summer because you were having some really big doubts in business. And a big lesson that I want to share with everybody before we go into kind of what that looked like is we get really comfortable in our discomfort. And
Yes.
for you, the comfort level was not being successful. And you are a very, very clear example, and this happens all the time, where I get a client who has consistently not had results. and then they get results and they self-sabotage, or they just start spiraling because they think it's going to crumble anyway. So let me just hurry up and make it happen. Right. And some of that I think is kind of what was going on. But in our first year together, you hit that 83K, which was awesome. I remember you sending me a screenshot about 1 year into working together of your, maybe not even, maybe less than that, where you sent me your savings account,
Yeah, that was a big.
actually like having 5 figures in that, being like, hey, I'm sending this to you privately, but I've never had this kind of money in savings. And I think it was like multiple months of your salary, so to speak, in your savings account.
Yeah.
Or the time that you got really excited to pay taxes because you were like, I've never owed anything. This sounds so silly, but like I get to partake because I'm a business owner. So all of these wins going from 8K to 83K to 130K plus in a very short amount of time. Tell me what was going through your head earlier this year and how that excitement kind of started to shift.
Yeah, I think, and this could be a whole other can of worms, of be very careful with who you surround yourself with. Because, I mean, I had gotten into a crowd of people who weren't successful and always wanted to complain about what was going wrong. And I was seeing success, and I felt like I was the outlier and I was the mistake. I was like, "Oh shit, like, what am I missing? Like, something's gotta be off here. Like, am I missing something? Am I not doing something the same way? Is this a fluke? Is it going to end? Like, there's no way." And just the mindset of that entire group was, we're never going anywhere. So I was sitting here with 130K contracted in freaking September, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to be successful. I'm never going to go anywhere, even though I was making what I was making. And so it is just so important, like, who you surround yourself with, really, because that's all it was. It was the doubts of a group that I let kind of tease apart my mindset. And I don't love that fact about myself, that that was, it's so easy for that to happen, because I started to spiral. I was like, well, if everybody else feels this way, then of course, like, why don't I feel this way? And so I started to feel that way because I was like, oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah.
And so it was literally just self-doubt, like letting that creep in and letting that take control of the steering wheel, when I knew I'm in control. Like, that shit doesn't matter. Like, I'm in control. I know the levers that I can pull to make more income in my business. And if I had just like come back to that truth sooner and not let all of that just like BS kind of fuck with me, I would have been like, totally chill. And you and Mike really pulled me out of that. And I really needed you to pull me out of that, because while I was in it, I was like tunnel vision. It's like you can't hear anything else because you're just like being bombarded with all this just bullshit.
And that's an important lesson for anyone. And I think for you, it sucks that you had to feel that in the middle of success. But I think a lot of coaches never get their business to even a 5K, 10K month because their friend group from high school or college is just okay complaining about their boss and this and that. And when you are the most successful person in the room, you are in the wrong room, right? That is not me saying that everyone you surround yourself with needs to be more successful than you. That's not the takeaway from that. But if it's constantly complaining and people that are not adding value and hyping you up, for example, I have plenty of friends and clients and colleagues where we're on various levels of business. And I have plenty of colleagues that are way beyond me, but never once have they made me feel like lesser than or smaller than. It's just, it is what it is. And we're talking about success, right? And I've got, friends and whatnot where we all are on different levels and playing fields, but we hype each other up because we're our support unit, right? And the second somebody's starts to kind of give you, either whether you want to call it toxic environment situation or just negative energy, it really is contagious. And fortunately, you were in a container like 4%, and I knew you well enough to know how to give you space, but also kind of pull you when I thought things were actually wrong. And I wanted to bring that up because, like I said, this is not something that is unique. I talk to so many coaches who have built six-figure businesses and it's crumbled because either lack of support in their households, lack of support in general, self-doubt, whatever. And you just happen to be at the right place, the wrong time. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how that happened for you. But I do want to kind of talk about 4% and kind of what that transition was like. And you've obviously been with me for a ton of transitions. And if you're listening to this and you need to know one thing about me and my coaching style, it is that I'm always updating and tweaking and changing and upgrading. I pretty much don't stop. So you've seen various parts of 4%. You've seen multiple FCAs at this point. But I would love to know kind of like the transition into 4% and going from more of like a group kind of container into something like a mastermind, because I think the word mastermind gets such a bad reputation today. So kind of what the support and dynamic is like inside of that.
I felt like it was a seamless transition. I knew that I was in a room with bigger players and that made me wanted to show up bigger. So that was kind of the main shift that I got. I was like, okay, like I'm surrounded by hella successful people. Like I want to be the next one, and that's kind of the energy that I took into it. But from a coaching perspective, I got so much more one-on-one access. I got like so much more just like I felt this is kind of I don't know how to really describe it, but I felt very comfortable in that environment because I knew that everything that I was going through, someone else was going through it too, right? And so being able to lean on the community of 4%, it's like unlike anything I've ever been in. And then we also got more access to Mike, and Mike has literally like saved my life multiple times. I'm the one drifting out into the ocean and he's like throwing the buoy, like, catch on, Haley, come on, like, let's dial it back in. And so having more access to him, getting more access to Quantel as well, like those things are invaluable because they're all the parts. It's like you each represent like a different part of business. Like you all like, and I'm sure you did that intentionally, but like as you go in, you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting support on all these different things and they go together so well. And so it made
Almost like I was intentional. And if you're listening to this and you're like, who the fuck is Mike? Who are these people? So to give you context, and this is totally not a 4% sell, but I basically wanted to create something that no one had done before that I had seen. And I got so tired of outgrowing my own mentors. So I really wanted to create a pathway that took you from 0 to 7 figures. And so the path to 4%, which literally is a path to 4%, is where you get to work with me and my team. So you basically have me as your coach as on a private capacity, but you also have my business manager slash operator who's going to help you with any tech support. You've got Mike, who is on my sales team, who's going to dial in all of your sales skills as well as working with your team. And I think that's like one of the coolest things that I'm sure you've seen is as you grow in your business and get team members, they get access to these things as well, right? And so I think for you, it's been cool watching you grow, but now there's that challenge with like, scale, and there's still mindset shifts and all of that. But like you've done a really great job and navigating those challenges. Sure. Did you go a little MIA for a minute? Yes. But the reason I brought that up is because there's so many coaching containers where people feel like they're just floating in the abyss and that
yes.
no one's actually watching them, that they're just a dollar sign, etc. And I would just love to know what your, because it's been almost 2 years now. Again, like, how would you describe me and my coaching style, whether it's FCA, 4%, whatever, just kind of like what you're getting when you invest with me?
A lot of words. There's a lot of words. Um, from my perspective, I truly got a support system. And I had a lot of supportive people in my life. No one ever really told me that I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And I'm very blessed in that way, but no one could help me get there. And so when I got into FCA and even 4%, it was like there's this person who's gone through this journey that I'm trying to go through. And when I overcome these obstacles, that to me, it's like earth shattering. And to me, it's like my entire world is crumbling. And you can be that solid foundation of no, this is like a totally normal problem. Like you are experiencing something that everyone experiences. Here's what we're going to do to get out of it. And that seems so small, but when not small, like it's huge. Like I have invested $40,000 into coaching and not one of them ever messaged me when I went quiet. Not one, except for when I could tell like my 30 days was almost up. Like my 30-day, like she's missing, like let's message her with 30 days left. That like super like cheesy message, whatever they send, 30 days. That's the most I've ever gotten. But you and Mike, when I did go MIA, you were both so persistent and you were both like, hey, we can tell something's up with you. Like, we need to get on a call. We need to figure this out. And I've never had that level of support in any container ever, to where not only were y'all willing to just like sit down and talk with me, and it wasn't even a sales conversation, like that wasn't even in the conversation. It was literally just like, hey, like what's going on? And you like were legitimately checking on me. And that's like life changing when you're like in the midst of the abyss of everything sucks and I'm dying. Like to feel like you're not completely alone. That was the biggest thing. That's like the best support system I've ever had for going through what I'm going through, trying to build this thing.
Tell me about the community. And I mean like the conference, so to speak, right? Because I think so many people advertise community and maybe it's not false, but I just think it's different here. And I would love to know how the conference was this year, what that kind of feels like, what the community is like, what you've gained from it, and how that's kind of helped your growth in business.
The community, I feel yeah, like you're right. That word gets thrown around like it's, I don't know, cheddar cheese. I don't know. It just gets thrown around like it's nothing. And I've never really experienced that. Like that was something that was like told to me as like a sell in my other coaching account, like containers that I invested in. And then when I got in, I was like, what do you mean community? I've never talked to any of these people in my life. But I can legitimately say like my best friends are in Path to 4% and FCA. Like the people that I talk to, the people that I drive an hour and a half to co-work with Kayla in Greenville. I drive 48 minutes to go see Becca in Lexington. Like I've got something on the books with Lindsay to go co-work with her. And now we know that Jess is in Myrtle Beach. And like these are people I talk to on a daily basis, like just checking in, or they send me a message and they're like, just, hey, how are you? Like, are you alive? Is everything okay? And I'm like, these are my best friends. Like, and I don't have very many friends. I'm not that kind of girl. My circle's really small, but from a like, and this is one thing that I really appreciate that I don't think we've really talked about and I've never like really said out loud, but you get into situations with girls and girls can be really catty, like really hard to connect to, really hard to be friends with. But in Dallas and in 4%, like the way that we all came together and we all just were so supportive of each other, like it's kind of making me emotional, I'm not gonna lie. Um, like those are my best friends,
Not me
and
crying. It's
I
politics.
know, literally, I'm like, fucking stop, Haley. But I told you and Mike, like, that conference saved my life, like in more ways than you'll know. God, this is stupid.
I didn't even cry.
Yeah, I'm like, and if you guys hadn't pulled me back, I would have missed out on that opportunity to hug Haley and talk to Lindsay and have really deep conversations and share my biggest fears doing this business thing by myself. And I can't get that anywhere else. Like no one else who really truly understands what you're going through and gets it and is like ready to be in the trenches with you even when shit sucks, right? Like cuz it's hard sometimes and that's normal, that's life, but this is the first time I've had someone in the trenches with me because like those girls, like they have my back and I've got their back. If Haley calls me, is like, I need you to get to Florida, my ass is on a plane. Like it's no questions asked. They're my girls and I made new friends and even newer girls when I was there. And it's for someone who in a world that's very isolating with entrepreneurship, like I just can't wait to squeeze them in Nashville. Like that's all I can think about is like hugging them in Nashville.
It's so funny, because I remember thinking about what I was going to share with you guys, and I was like very nervous to kind of share the updates because, as you've learned at this point, I have surprises every time, and they're always like, wait, what's that, and so this year I'm like, this was the event, and this was, the third year in a row of doing it, but that was the feedback I got from so many of you guys, is that like this year was just, it was the perfect group. Everyone went to dinner together. Like, if you're listening to this and you've been to a conference, there's the vibe where you get a name tag and find your seat, and then I've created, if a retreat and a conference had a baby, that is what this is. Like,
Yeah.
truly, that is what it is. And I decided to do a actual retreat in Nashville. So there's two opportunities for us to all get together next year. And I think it's going to be so fun. I know it's going to be so fun. But you know, don't underestimate that kind of community, because when you are looking to really grow, and when I say grow, I'm not talking about 5K and 10K. And while that is already life changing, if you're really wanting to grow this business and build, you will unintentionally isolate yourself just because people don't get it. And as somebody who's lost many friends, not because I did anything wrong or they did anything wrong, but people just got tired of inviting me places that I couldn't go to because I picked business or whatever. They didn't understand why I was working on a Saturday or whatever. And that's cool, but entrepreneurs get it. And when you get it, it makes it so much easier to connect and build community. And then whenever you're having a hard day, you know who to talk to. Sure, you should be telling me these things, but there's a difference between like productive conversation and like, hey, I need to talk to somebody who gets it, who's on my level, who can like work through this with me. And that's really what I wanted to create here. Um, and that's awesome. And then going back to Fitness Coach Academy, right? I want to talk about the level of involvement, because obviously it is a group container. Yes, you talk to me. Yes, I'm on coaching calls, but you do have a designated coach as well.
Mm.
I want to know from your perspective kind of how that feels, because I still get so many women, men that are like, I just want to work with you privately. I don't want to join a group. A group is awful. And so I want your kind of thoughts on what that is in FCA, and what that looks like.
I won't lie, I never felt like I was in a group program. Like, not one time did I ever feel that way, because I knew that I could ask a question in a channel and you would respond. Like, I got direct feedback every single time I had a question. Um, Even when I would share like I shared a couple things with you privately, like you were like, hell yeah, let's go. Like it just never felt like a group container. And I don't know how to truly articulate it, because yeah, it's a group container, whatever, quotation fingers, I say that. But you get so much one-on-one feedback that it's like, no, it's not. Like, I've been in group containers where you don't get anything from anyone. Like, your job is to go through the curriculum, submit the homework if there is actually homework, and to just like do with it what you will. And there's no level of conversation. Like, that to me is a group container. But FCA is not that. Like, you have multiple coaches literally talking to you at all times. You talk to me at all times. Like, I don't remember a single thing that I ever put in there that I didn't get feedback from you on it in some shape or form, whether that be on the coaching calls or whatever. Like, so I never felt like it was a group container. I never had that thought in my brain.
And just to kind of give perspective to the listeners for why I added coaches, because, there was once upon a time when I was just starting out where I thought the selling point was like, it's just me, only me. But as the business grows, you keep finding innovative ways to design and increase delivery, right? However, I've never done anything that sacrificed client results. And so one complaint that I heard over and over again, and feel free to kind of chime in, was that other programs had that too many cooks in the kitchen feel, where there were tons of coaches, but you were getting too much feedback to where it was hard to implement. And so when you get me in FCA, you do get me, but you have an assigned coach to your business for private calls, weekly check-ins, so that yes, you get me, but you have somebody who has like undivided attention on you, stalking your every move for accountability so you don't slip through the cracks. Because in my opinion, the hardest part with growing a business at the very beginning is not necessarily like doing, I mean, kind of, but it's building the habits of doing,
Yeah.
right? You can DM one time a few people, but it's building the habits and then staying accountable right? Like that to me is the hardest part because you're building habits that don't exist. So that's kind of where I want to get your perspective on the delivery in this group container versus maybe delivery you've had in other containers.
Yeah, I know all of the past ones that I've been in, and I've been in them from all around the country. They've all been in like multiple different places. Um, you get the curriculum and it's like, here you go. And it's like, if you have a question, show up to this call. That's it. Like that's literally it. That's the coaching is if you have a question, show up to this call. Here's the curriculum, go do it. Um, and that I don't know in what world that works. That doesn't work with fitness coaching for me, like or like nutrition coaching. Like if I were to just give someone like their entire like 6 months ahead and be like, here, just go do it, and then they only show up if they have a question. I'm like, no, they're not going to get anywhere. Like obviously that doesn't make sense. And so I got multiple touch points a day. Any question I had got feedback, and it was all very clear feedback, and it was all very, even if I had multiple feedbacks from different perspectives, it was still the same thing, just said in a different way. Like it was the congruency of the coaches was really important for me, at least. I was like, no, this all makes sense. But then also there's so many possibilities for touch points. You get your homework looked at and reviewed. You get your content looked at and reviewed. You get your sales strategies looked at and reviewed. I could send a screenshot of DMs and be like, help, what do I say? And I get feedback. And I've never gotten that before. You can literally hop on a call and ask a question. If you can't make the call, you can type the question in the question channel and you know that it's going to be answered and that you can go back and look at it. And your coach even comes back and says, hey, touched on this in the call, go watch that replay. So that way you get your answer and you know exactly where to find it. You don't have to be like, well, did it get answered? I don't know. Nobody said anything. And there's just super clear communication, which is very rare. Very, very rare in all the things I've been in. I've never had communication this clear where it's like, hey, closing this loop, this thread, did we solve this problem? Yes, cool, great. We go, and then I get to voice my next thing, right? Like I fixed that, great, awesome. What do I do next? You know? And so I never at any point while I was in FCA felt like I was in a group program because even then I was still talking to all the other people in FCA. I talked to Lou all the time, you know, and was just like, we would just like talk and be like, hey, what are you doing to figure this out? And I'd be like, this is what I'm doing. What are you doing? And then we would take pieces from each other, you know? And so I never ever felt like I was like an island in a way, because that's how I felt in other containers. Like I was an island and everything else was just happening around me. But in FCA, it's like, no, I'm the captain of this ship and I just need to get the direction where I need it.
The best way to explain FCA is like a big city with a small town feel. Do you know what I mean?
Literally, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Would never have thought of it that way. That's that. It never stops.
If you're not watching this, you're missing out on gold. Like gold. That's all I'm gonna say. You're missing out on gold. You need to all watch the YouTube version of this.
Next year at Dallas, we're all gonna have outfits that have the city we come from on them. How funny would that be?
Oh I mean, how funny would it be if I just got you all Cleveland ones, like at the end of the day? Like, here you guys go.
With a good time, I'm in. I'm in.
Like, why are we here again? My favorite thing too, like watching you in particular kind of go through FCA to 4% was I watched you really latch on to some people in FCA and you guys all kind of graduated up together, which was cool. So, you know, like I said, I don't know if you felt this because probably not because you didn't have success in previous containers, but I see it so often where a coach will hit a certain level and then there's nowhere else to go after that. They're like, where do I go? And so again, that's why I've created that pathway. But more importantly, you know, I've wanted to always make damn sure that I know everything about you, your weaknesses, your strengths, what you do for fun, your hobbies. And I think that going back to just what you said on the very beginning of this, where like, oh, I almost said F you in the DMs and you got me with something, but like jokes aside with the DM strategy, you knew before you ever signed up that I was going to give you my undivided attention. And I still to this day have people that are like, wait, you're not on the sales call? Like, if you don't have time to get on a sales call, it's like, I'm talking to you on a Sunday in the DMs and I'm coaching you. So, like, no, that's where I don't hop on. But was I the first person that kind of gave you faith in the DM process working differently?
Yeah, I remember you just were like, "Hey, like, what's up?" I remember that's all you said. You not like in a joking way, but I like had just told you that I was really struggling. I was super in debt, like that I'd invested in tons of other coaches and things weren't working. And you're like, "Yeah, like walk me through it. What's going on?" And I gave you I can go back. It was a novel. I sent you a novel on Instagram of like, "Hey, like these are all the things that I've been doing. Nothing's working." And you sent me the most simple KPI podcast that I still go back and listen to the I told you I could write a dissertation on this thing. Like I know this podcast, I know your opening sentence, I know the closing line. I know this podcast like it has been tattooed in my brain. And you sent me this KPI podcast because that was something that I was really struggling with. I had literally zero strategy and I had no like metrics. I had nothing. I didn't know anything that was going on. I had no idea. Nothing was tracked. So everything was chaotic. And you sent me that, and I did write a dissertation on it. And I started plugging and playing in those things, and you just checked in on me, and you're like, "Yeah, hey, how's that going? How's that podcast episode? Like, what did you think?" You asked me like my homework, if you will. Um, and I was like, one, you just gave me every answer that I asked you in that entire novel of stuff that I sent you. You answered all of my questions. You answered without ever pitching to me. You sent me multiple resources, giving me places I could go, direction to take, actions that I could take. And you checked in on me every single time. Been like, "Hey, Haley, didn't hear from you." And I'm like, "Shit, you're right. You got me." Um, and in all the other containers, it was like literally, "Hey Haley, saw you're a fitness coach, join this $10,000 container." And I'm just kind of like, "Okay, okay." Like it felt really robotic and really, but you would send me voice memos. You sent me a photo of your Lululemon thing or something like that. I remember that because you worked at Lululemon and that's what we connected over. And you sent me like a picture of the pair of leggings that you had said were your absolute favorite. And I was just like, "Oh, she gets it. Like this is a real person. Like this is a real human being who's talking to me and has shown that she is invested in me being better. Even if I could literally ghost her right now, I knew this. I was like, I could literally ghost her right now and my business would still be better tomorrow because of what she sent me today." And I'm like, that's insanity. Like, why did she do that? Why did she give me that? I'm like, she got played. I'm gonna take this and run. But then really it was like I would start binging the podcast and I'm like, she's like giving it all to us. And so it's like, if you're willing to do this for me for free and I'm not even paying you, like take my money. Don't retire. You can't. I'm sorry. You literally can't. Just whatever amount you want, it's yours. Take it. Like don't even like send me an invoice. Just charge my card. Like at this point, that's how it is.
And next up, I will be going back to school and getting my doctorate in therapy. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But I'm gonna wrap up with two questions. And one is, what are you working on in the next like 1 to 2 years that you're really excited on in your business?
I'm working on, well, really creating, and you said this in your voice memo to me today, and it actually got me really excited, really creating SOPs in my business. Like things that are repeatable that I can then start to actually look at for a team, that I can actually start to go from solopreneur to entrepreneur, if you will. Like those are the things that I'm really excited about. And I kind of like had just kind of filed in the back of my brain as a later thing. But now kind of being where I'm at, I'm like, no, like I can entertain the idea of having a team member. And that is so scary because I'm like, who, me? I was 40K in the hole 2 years ago. What are you talking about? I can't pay anyone. To now being like, oh, like my business is going in that direction. And that's going to be the next step for me. So I'm really, really excited about making SOPs to like bring in someone who can help me continue to grow this.
And that's definitely like something we're working on like now. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know we're not going to share your deepest, darkest plans for what's coming, but if you had to summarize this year, and I know we still have a little bit of time left, but if you had to summarize this year and say what makes you feel most accomplished this year, what would that be?
What makes me feel most accomplished is not giving up on myself. Like, I really could have. I was right there. Like, I was right there. And it's like crazy to think because I don't even think back to the fact that I had an 8K year versus an 88K year versus a 130 on the trajectory for 150K year. Like, to me, I'm like, whatever, like that past stuff doesn't matter. Just move forward. Right. But I almost gave up on that when I've been doubling my business time and time again. And it's like, if I just stay this path and I continue doing the things I know I need to do, there's nothing to say I can't double it again next year and the year after that and the year after that. And so I'm just really grateful that this year, yes, there were trials and there were challenges, and I was really floating out in that ocean. I was Titanic out there all by my lonesome. But I didn't have to be. That was most definitely self-prescribed. Um, but yeah, the fact that I didn't give up and that I came back to what I know I needed, like that's what I'm most grateful for this year.
Do you think that I come as advertised?
Oh my God, it's copy paste. What are you talking about?
I
What you see on Instagram is what you get in person, and I love it.
what do you
I love it.
this is like an off, like I don't even know what you're gonna say to this, to be honest, but like what is something that you wish people knew about me before hiring me? Like, I wish they knew this about Taylor, but they haven't worked with her for almost 2 years like I have, but they should know this about her.
Oh my God, that you're so fucking funny. Literally. Like, you are so fucking funny. Like, you have me geeking just about every other day. And I'm
Remember
like,
the fastest fingers the other day?
oh my, stop, stop. I embarrassed myself in front of that entire group call. And I was like, oh, Taylor, I said it wrong.
All right, so we're gonna end with this story because it's a good one. So there's a phrase I say, and I'm not gonna bring it up yet, but basically, we were on a mastermind call and Haley was doing some project updates and she was sharing what she was working on. And she's like, yeah, whatever you said, like, move your fingers faster or something like that. And everyone on the call was immediately minds just went to weird places, right? And I'm like, that is
Andre was like, yep.
yeah, all of the dudes were like, yep, sounds about right. And I was like, okay, everyone, the phrase is fastest fingers get rewarded. To which case the dude still said, yep, sounds about right. But regardless, that is now going to be on coffee mugs in Nashville because otherwise, that's it. So
I
that's so great. I'm glad that I make you laugh along the journey. So
wear a diaper. That's real. So I need you to give me a heads up. Be like, Haley, wear an adult diaper today. I will actually pee myself if that ever shows up on a coffee cup. Like, I'm not kidding. I need a warning. I need like 4 days in advance to go get some Pampers or something. I will pee myself. That's so funny.
and I
I'm
think
so
like
embarrassed.
just to kind of wrap because we've talked about so many topics and I intentionally didn't want to go into like skill set, like what DM strategy worked the best for you because like yes, I teach you methods, but everything is customizable based on your weaknesses and strengths. Like that's just a fact. And also, we have never once talked about ads. We've never once talked about, websites, logos. Like you really learn how to build a business without the bells and whistles and the stability of having like an actual business. I think so many people get caught up in the other things without building anything. But what I wanted to wrap with was the fact that like, yes, you've had hard moments, but I would argue that these years, even though they've been really challenging for you, they've probably been some of the best years. Like you've had fun while doing it.
Yeah, no, I think about that often where it's like, I actually love what I do. And it's like the impact that I get to have, the people that I get to help, and then the life that I get to change on my end as well, like, that's invaluable. The fact that I now, like, my husband has had an internship for the past year to, like, chase his dream job, and I can pay our rent, and I can pay the bills, you know? And literally, if I've struggled for so long that it's like, is this real? I don't even know. But it's real. And I love doing it. Like I wanted to start this business because I knew that I had something to offer the world that would be make the entire fitness space a better place. And I knew that if I could just figure it out, if I could just figure it out, that I can change their lives and I can change my life. And now it's I can work from wherever I want. I can work at a coffee shop. I don't have to be in the same four walls all damn day, making me miserable, thinking I'm going to pull my hair out at any minute. I don't have to answer to anyone. I get to answer to me and you. But like it truly is the most liberating thing I've ever done. And I'm so glad that I took that chance one more time. Like it really, it's that saying that they make about gamblers, you know, they all get so close before they quit, you know, they're one quit away from having that next jackpot. But really the fact that this one choice was the choice that I needed to make in order to be from broke as a joke, 40K in debt to having a six-figure business. Like I never thought that was going to be possible for me. And it has, like, yes, it's been challenging, but at the same time, it's also been so easy in a way because it's just been a natural progression to this point. So, life-changing shit.
I love it. Life-changing shit. Fastest fingers get rewarded, you know.
Put it on a coffee cup, put it on a grout fit.
Put it on a grout fit. Well, Haley, I appreciate you hanging out with me. I know that you spend a lot of time with me as it is. So thanks for an extra hour and 15 minutes. But I think that this was, in my opinion, very helpful for people that are truly like in that grind in the beginning, trying to remind themselves, like, is it worth it to keep going? Should I try one more time?
Literally, you should. Point
Cool.
blank.
I'm gonna link Haley's Instagram below. So if you feel like spamming her, then great. But also she's got great fitness content. If you're ever looking for ideas or examples of, in my opinion, somebody that is putting out really quality content, then I would say check her out. So Haley, I appreciate you.